just about 7:30, so we'll convene tonight's meeting of the Community Services Committee on 13th of September. The Town Council record all public meetings held in the Council Chamber. Under new legislation, members of the public are able to record, film and broadcast from a designated area. Please be aware that the meeting may be recorded and might be filmed or broadcast. So item number 1, apologies. Are there any apologies?
We have an apology from Councillor Gaskell and Councillor Liver is substituted.
Thank you. Item 2, declaration of interest. Anybody on the agenda that anyone feels they need to declare? Very interesting. No? Okay, I'll move to item 3. So as I've already outlined, this is what I'd like to try and do, because I think it's, as I said, an opportunity for us to sort of actually record what we have been doing in terms of engaging with the community. So I'm just going to sort of read through some of the things that have happened over the summer since we took office. So obviously we've been dealing with local issues, casework where people have actually been directly in contact with us. In June, we had the Armed Forces Day where Councillors Haynes, Fisher, Scott and myself attended the ceremony, and then we went along to the British Legion and met with some of the veterans there, which was actually a really interesting morning. Councillor Brosnan spent the day with Harpenden Safe Neighbourhood Team, led by Sergeant Mark Eason. If I pronounced that right. Essen. I know, Jamie, you've done that in the past before, haven't you?
Yes.
That gave us a useful insight into how the whole system works, the radio controls, and actually, really importantly, the day-to-day issues that affect Harpenden: vandalism, speeding, car theft, flight tipping. As most of you know, on this one, Councillor Gaskell, myself, Councillor Haynes and Scott have all been meeting with the staff at the Eric Morecambe Centre and had a tour of the facilities there. We also had discussions with them about some of the future events they may hold and about their general community engagement with people here in Harpenden to improve their profile. As Link councillors, myself and Victoria Pasek met with members of the Harpenden History Society, which they're now going to call themselves rather than the local Harpenden District History Society. The Society is responsible for the running of the new museum at the EMC. It's not open yet, but it will. The plan is that it will open in November 2023. We've both been around the museum and met with some of these people who are responsible for running it and curating the exhibitions. Councillor Haynes, as you know, is chair of the Banking Hub Working Committee, and she's continued her discussions with relevant parties to try and secure this in-person banking hub in Harpenden. I think quite a few of us had that Barclays message about them setting up some sort of face-to-face service in the Methodist Church. But beside that, I know that Card has been in correspondence with the FCA, the Cash Access UK and Link. And HTC also hosted a visit from Joanne Wallace, Chair of CAF Access UK Advisory Panel. This panel looks at the criteria that's needed to be met before a hub can be approved. So we're continually trying to push that very important item along. Okay, so that's the Chairman's report. Any urgent items?
None, Chair.
Right, no urgent items. So let's move on to item 4. Public questions in accordance with Standing Order 20.
None have been received, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Item 5, the minutes of the last meeting. You've got in front of you. Is there anything from that anybody would like to raise? Any questions or anything that you see that's all fine? So I'll sign that. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, I'm looking at it. Everybody confirm that they were.
Yes. Yeah, confirmed. Yeah. Okay, so let's move to the officers' reports. So the first one we're going to look at is the forward planner and resolution tracker. So over to you, Phil, if you'd like to.
Thank you, Chair. This report simply produces the forward planner, which outlines what agenda items are for future meetings. And it also has the resolution tracker, which looks back at items at previous meetings with an update on there. And these are both for noting, but regarding the resolution tracker, committee are invited to approve the removal of those resolutions which are marked as complete.
Okay, has everybody had a chance to look at Appendix A and Appendix B? Yeah. And on point 2, 1.2, do we approve the removal of those resolutions marked complete? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we approve forward planner attached in Appendix A. So back from there. Happy? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, budgetary control. The report's attached, I think before the page is page 13.
Yes, Chair. This report presents the actual expenditure and income position as at the 31st of July 2023. As you will see, it reflects a good position with an £11,000 favourable variance. The majority of that being due to income from the tennis court and money within Rockhampton.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on that, on the budgetary control? 23, 24. Give you a few minutes to digest it, just in case you haven't had a chance to put into it. Is everybody happy?
I didn't realise Christmas tree lights were quite so expensive.
Yeah, Christmas tree lights is an interesting. I won't open that discussion.
Is he functioning again, or has he still got broken legs and things? Or
He's council's referring to Chair to the contractor that works for us.
Yes.
He's had some health difficulties. I understand that he's largely recovered now, and I'm trying to arrange a meeting with him in Harpenden.
So
don't let him climb a ladder.
do you need a few more minutes to look at the figures, or is everybody content?
Yeah, that's
Content. So the committee is asked to note the report. Aye. Yes. All in favour? Yeah. And to note the release of the reserves set out in Appendix A. Yes. Yeah. All in favour. Thank you. Right. The request for memorials.
Thank you, Chair. This report presents 3 requests. One of them is for a person who resided all their life in Harpenden, and it's for a plaque in memory of them to be attached to an existing bench within the sensory garden. The second request is for a new memorial bench on the Common Cricket Club boundary area. The person that would remember acted as a volunteer at the cricket club, and the cricket club are in support of that one taking place. So both of those applications are recommended to the committee for consideration for approval. The third request relates to relocating an existing bench near the old Three Horseshoes pub on the Common, which I believe has been in place for about 10 years and is in need of some minor repair. The recommendation to committee regarding this one, due to the fact that it's been there for quite a few years now, is set in concrete, needs some repair and there may be risk of damaging it by trying to remove it from the concrete, the recommendation is that we don't approve for that bench to be moved, and we don't actually have an identified location to move it to at this time. Anyway.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Where did that last request come from or advice?
From a relative, but I don't know.
That's fine, yeah, it will be quite public.
No, yeah.
Is it the dedicated to Christopherson?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't know. The significance of that. So, is the committee minded to approve the two requests, or about one at Bowers Parade and two at Harpenden Cricket Club? Yes, you're all in favour?
Yep.
Yes. And to deny the request, move an existing bench located on Harpenden Common, close to Balmsall Cricket Club. All in favour?
I think it needs to be explained that the reason we're not is because there's no suggestion of where else it could go. Rather than just being
Yeah.
a no.
So, the bench is the only bench within the vicinity of this location and is in need of minor maintenance. Due to the age, location and limited availability of suitable spaces to receive the bench, it is recommended that it remains in situ. Do we feel that we need more than that?
Or is it, do they want it refurbished or just moved?
Okay.
Yeah, so Chair, they haven't specifically made a request it's refurbished. They asked for it to be moved, and when it was assessed, it was considered that because of the condition it's in and the length of time it's been there, that it wasn't really viable to move it at this stage. And as I mentioned, as an afterthought, we also haven't identified somewhere that it could be moved.
And that will be explained.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
There's also a nice spot there actually where it's.
where it is, yeah. Okay, but
It's a nice sun spot.
so, but are we all content to, actually, not proceed with that request?
Yeah.
And see if they do come back with an alternative suggestion. I don't know if that's the case. Okay, so, on to item 6.4, which is the review of the, Harpenden Town Council's policy on memorials, which is quite, this is interesting. So, Bill.
Thank you, Chair. So committee will be asked relatively regularly to review Harpenden Town Council's policies. And tonight it's the turn of the memorials policy that has come up for review. The policy with the proposed changes is attached as Appendix A, and you will see that the proposed changes are shown in track changes. Points to make are that during the past couple of years, Harpenden Town Council have either installed or inherited about 88 more benches, and that's quite a substantial number of benches in terms of the maintenance required, so the resource and the cost of actually doing that. Any further installation of benches only adds to that. So you will see outlined in the report that we favour slowing down the amount of benches that are actually added to the current stock, and that is reflected within the amended Appendix A, the memorials policy. And committee are asked to consider that and to consider approving what's detailed there.
Okay, I don't know if people have had a chance to look at Appendix A. Do you want to just have a few minutes to have a quick look at that?
Quickly, do you know how many requests we get?
So in the last 2 years, because most of them have been approved, in the last 2 years, we've installed 20, I haven't got it written here, but it is 26 that we've installed in the last 2 years. And I don't think the committee have refused any, so you say 26 in the last 2 years. Prior to that, not very many were installed simply because previously there had been consideration by persons in the past
Yeah.
that we were at capacity then. But then we managed to identify new locations, which is why we managed to install another 26 since then.
Carl, would you like to add anything about the policy? The amendments?
Not in particular, Chair. No, I think Phil's kind of covered it off. That there just becomes a point where we have to seriously consider our ability to maintain and upkeep these benches. We charge an upfront cost to provide the bench and a very small administration fee that doesn't really cover the installation hours of the town rangers. So anything beyond that, it's time that we aren't able to put into other things. So I think we've still identified some areas that we can and do have capacity. But I think we just need to be open in saying some areas we can't take anymore.
Sorry, memorial wise, this is the new policy is only talking about seats and benches stuff. Is there's scope for other things like memorial trees or anything? It is in there, yeah. So we're not going to change anything if people want to go down that route, or do we actually advise people if we're going to start saying, oh, it's going to be hard to get a bench, maybe push people toward planting a tree instead?
I think, Chair, that suggestion is correct, that we have a tree planting plan as it is.
Yeah.
We've planted a lot of trees, again, within the last couple of years,
Yeah.
and we intend to promote the planting of trees going forward, which will include memorial trees.
What's the lifespan of the bench?
Within the policy, we say that we will maintain it for 15 years.
15 or 15?
15.
Okay.
The exception is that the ones that we've inherited from St Albans District Council, their tenure is 10 years. So we maintain them for 10 years. Having said that, the reality is that there are currently benches out there which are obviously much older than that, and we won't remove them just for the sake of removing them if they are in good condition and serving a good purpose.
But are you maintaining them?
Yes, so they get painted once a year. But there is, I can't remember which type they are, but there is a type of bench that we install a lot, which doesn't need any painting. It doesn't need any maintenance. So I say it doesn't need maintenance. It needs repairing when it gets broken, but it doesn't need the annual paint. But the rest of them get painted annually.
Because obviously you have to maintain them, because you can't have people sitting down on empty benches.
Yes, that's correct.
So at the end of 15 years, would you consider decommissioning a bench so that another memorial bench could come on in?
So
Is it a bit tricky because of the nature of what it is?
So I think, Chair, that the purpose of having the policy saying that the tenure is 15 years, it gives us that opportunity that if a bench is not in the best of condition at the end of 15 years, that frees up the possibility of removal of that one and an opportunity for another applicant to have a bench put in place.
How much is a bench?
They're somewhere around 600 to 700 pounds-ish, I think. They're quite expensive.
That's having gone down the route in a different part of the country, that's about right. That's what they were charging as well, so.
So our policy will be, we're full at the moment, a bit like a car park. You'll get in when someone have a go
Well,
on.
there's some designated areas where there's, where there will be spaces.
So in those spaces, how many benches can you take?
So I think that the position we're at, Chair, is that if we get any further applications, there's obviously places there that we are suggesting to committee. We shouldn't add any more until this policy comes up for review again in 2 years' time. But there is also the other sites there where there may be opportunities. So if we get applications for those sites and we consider that they are viable, we'll bring them before committee for consideration.
Carl, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay? I should have checked that earlier on. Yeah, brilliant. I just wanted to just pick up on the maintenance point. Councillor Liver's point was spot on. It's like all of our assets. The better that they're maintained, the more chance we've got of giving them a longer life cycle than you'd expect. And all I was just going to reflect is that bench maintenance at the moment currently sits with our grounds maintenance contract. And so, like with many things within that, they haven't necessarily been looked after as well as we would have hoped, and therefore some of the benches wouldn't or haven't had the life expectancy that you'd hope they would have. Bringing the Town Ranger service in-house will transform that. But just to give you an example, Phil mentioned about they get painted. Quite often they don't get cleaned before they're painted. So birds' mess that might be on the bench before they are painted are underneath the new paint job after they've been painted. We have also had recycled benches painted in the past. And other things like that. So you're spot on the point about the more that we maintain to a high standard, the longer we will get out of these assets, and benches are the same as that.
Thank you. Jamie?
Also, hopefully that they won't get stringed round and therefore have a nice little ring around the legs, as we saw when we were looking at the allotments. Should you be pricing up the cost of installing and erecting them, so that if there are people that want more benches, that they actually pay for the installation, especially now, the Rangers are, we've got a bigger role, and we want to make sure that every bit we can get back from their time, we can get paid for what we should, shouldn't we?
Yeah, so Chair, Councillor makes a good point. What was introduced just in recent years was £100 administration fee. Now, that £100 fee was intended to cover things like the concrete that gets used and the range of time that actually install it. The costs such as the bench and the actual fittings, they get paid for by the donor anyway. So at the minute, Councillor raised a really good point. The administration fee is £100.
And that's two blokes for half a day.
It's two persons and.
Sorry, two individuals.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't meaning that, but it's two persons and it probably is getting on for half a day.
So are we
If they can
saying,
do it for 100 quid, I've got plenty of friends that they can come and do for me.
so are we saying here that maybe we should be reviewing this £100?
I think so.
Yeah.
And if it stops people from doing it, it works both ways.
Carl, any feedback on that review of the £100 maintenance cost, maybe?
Yeah, I think we certainly should review all those sorts of fees periodically anyway. I think just the thing I would add is that we've always been really sensitive about kind of admin fees, particularly around memorials, because we've never wanted to be seen to be charging them for something that's quite a sensitive and emotional sort of point of time in people's lives. And we've also been mindful that actually the £100, if you made it £300, we still wouldn't get the officer time back that's lost. And that's the kind of the crucial point, really. So yes, absolutely have a review of that. But I think we should always be mindful of the sensitive side of it, and the fact that the money doesn't really give us the time back that the Town Rangers would lose. I would keep it under review for the first sort of 6 months of the new Town Ranger service, and to see the balance off the number of requests we get in, and to see whether it is having a big impact. And at that point, if you did want to look at something that may discourage requests or cover costs more appropriately, look at introducing that at that time. That would be my advice at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Has anybody else got anything they'd like to add? So on the policy, on the memorial policy, does the committee approve the updated Town Council memorials policy, but also make note of the observations re-costings? Can we do that? Yes. All in favour? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, shall we say 6 months into the new contract? So we'll review it in 6 months once we see how the new contract's panning out and get a better idea of the requests and balance of the figures.
So Chair, I've recorded, we review 6 months after the new contract, which is, 1st of April next year, so.
Okay, thank you.
Can we get a costing, which on one of those benches that you've got, we've approved, can we get what it does cost in terms of time and installation?
Yeah.
Because I know it's a sensitive time, people, but I don't know that we should be subsidising the bereavement, really. This is our money. I know it's sensitive, but we need to be careful. We're not just doing this for the, I don't know.
I think we just, a point, a noted, and I think we should review all the costings because things are going to change, obviously, with the new contract and get a better feel for actually time and money, installation and maintenance. Okay, are we happy with that?
Well, I'll just say one point that we've got to remember that the bench is also an asset for people with Hartenden, and it's us giving back something really. I don't think it's just a matter of cost, is it? I don't think it's just a matter of cost of that, because the people of Hartenden are getting something back, aren't they? But they're getting a bench because the bench is paid for by the group. Isn't that so?
Yeah. So we're happy to approve the amendment, the changes that take place. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
With the provisos that we've said. Okay. So item 6.5, the circus tender. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So the council went out to tender for a non-animal circus this summer to issue a licence for it for the next 3 years. We received 2 responses, which are detailed within the report. Both were lower than we had hoped for, below what we consider to be appropriate for this type of event using the common. So as a result of that, we're asking the committee to consider approving that both tender submissions be declined at this time. And our intention would then be to run another tender process next year.
So do you want to elaborate, Phil, a little bit on why, in terms of the figures? The figures being
Yes,
so much less.
yes, I will do that, Chair. Councillor Chichester smiles.
Sorry, so do you reckon they put in lower bids based on their sales and what they've done previously here?
That could be the case. They are, having spoken to people from the circus industry, they are also saying that circuses are very hard hit by the cost of living issues at the minute. I'm taking that as meaning that they're not getting the crowds that perhaps they used to as well.
It's a real trouble.
So Chair, you asked me if I could if I could add anything regarding the prices in there. So the last time that a tender process was run, the fee that was to be generated by a 3-year agreement, I believe was £30,000, and the 2 offers for the 3 years on this occasion were 16,500 and 17,250. So only slightly above half of what it was last time.
Sorry, so I think, so just would say it, and then I'll come to you, Jill.
Yeah, do we have to do it in 3 years? In 3 years?
I don't know of any reason why we have to do it over 3 years, no.
Because it's difficult to know. You can make an estimate as to what the financial situation in the country will be in 3 years' time. But, we have to restrict ourselves by being tied to 3-year bid when we could possibly do a 1-year bid. Just,
Carl, do you want to come back on that? Any reason why it's normally been done over 3 years?
Yeah, so in terms of the 3 years deals, and this goes back to the start of my time because we asked similar questions way back then. And essentially, part of the reason for that is that is how the circuses have historically liked to be able to secure that sort of forward plan of locations, if you like. So they are planning where they are going, you know, a couple of years ahead. So part of the tender preferences from them is to be able to secure that over a longer period of time. So of course the knock-on effect in this case at the moment with the cost of living and other things is that it's quite difficult to predict whether things may be more lucrative in a couple of years time, and that's partly why we are suggesting that we have another look at this next year to see whether there is an improvement. And I think the only other thing I would add, Chair, is that we will also look at alternative events for that period on the common next year to replace it. There is great risk that goes with large scale events like this. Great potential risk to the green space, disruption around the town. And so our view is that the income that we bring in for it has to be kind of rewarding enough for that risk. And we just feel in this case, compared to what we could potentially bring in alternatively, it's just not worth the risk. As a comparison, so a recent large scale event, Oktoberfest, which we no longer run, but we ran for 2 years. The last commercial fee for that was £25,000 for 1 year. So there is opportunities to get the right event that lowers the risk to us, that also can be quite lucrative commercially. But we also have limited space in the programme. So we couldn't accept the circus and then see cover events as well, because the common's pretty much at capacity, and you have to also allow it time to kind of recover and throughout the year. Otherwise, you're just going to carry out sort of long-term damage. So long answer that covers a couple of things there.
Thank you, Carl. Jill, you had a
Yes,
question.
thanks. It's sort of tied in what Carl's just said. I was curious, was 4.3, paragraph 4.3, talk about reinstatement costs to repair damaged and I'm just wondering what you've got a ballpark figure for what those run out at,
So worst case.
or worst case scenario, yeah.
So what I can give you an example of what it cost probably nearly 2 years ago now. The circus on there did quite substantial damage. It was pretty muddy by the time they'd managed to tow their lorries off of it. And the harrowing and the reseeding on that occasion was in the region of £6,000. And on that occasion, the circus was very keen to pay for it and did pay for it. But the caution that we have is that one of these tenderers has indicated that they don't intend to pay reinstatement costs. So there's the worst case scenario is they do more damage than what we actually get in a fee.
Jamie, question?
What time of year is it? I mean, I guess the fact that I'm asking that means that it doesn't feel like it's a centerpiece of what Harpenden stands for, and perhaps we won't possibly miss it too much. But what time of year is it?
So the tender that went out this year said that they would be tendering between, I think it was the 1st of April and the end of September. So it was the summer expected to be drier months of the year. We learned from that example a couple of years ago where the circus went on there in winter months, and we made the decision that shouldn't.
I misread that. Sorry for asking. Okay.
Any other questions? So the committee is asked to decline both tender submissions. This will mean that there won't be a circus in Harpenden in 2024, but it gives the council the opportunity to look at alternatives that we might have, and then we'll look again at whether we put it out to tender in years to come. Everyone in favour? Sorry, Nick.
Last one. And this doesn't say complete no to them. If they want to come back and so they go, okay, we'll give you the 30K, they can come back. Or is it the tender is?
From today, you mean? It's closed now, Carl, isn't it?
No.
You have,
So I think the question was if they were to come back with a different offer, having taken
Yeah.
the decision today. Was that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much, yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, if you take this decision today within the officer report, and then a significant part of the reason why you are taking this decision changes, then we will essentially bring that back for consideration again.
good point, okay. So as of today, we're voting in favour to decline both tender submissions. All in favour?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So item 6.6, which is the farmers market stalls, and this is the to do with the approval of a new contractor.
Yes, Chair, thank you. So currently, the agreement for the provision of the stalls under the current grounds maintenance agreement will cease as of the end of March 2024. We know from research that we've done in recent years regarding provision of this service of providing and setting up stalls, that it's quite specialist, and there we were only able to find one contractor that could do it to the number of stalls that we actually require, and that was Ray Lynn Market Stalls company. So as a result, we have contacted them and negotiated a fee of £2,000 a month to provide this service post the 31st of March 2024. And this report is seeking authority to go ahead and firm up that agreement with Ray Lynn for the following 3 years.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Any questions on that?
So are they coming in the day before, taking down the day after? They sort of talk about how they're going to do it. And
So, Chair, the requirement that we would set would be the same as what we have at the minute, that they come first thing early in the morning, as required by our farmers market officer. They set them up. The traders arrive, they do their trading, and when they finish trading, the stalls will be dismantled and taken away.
so they basically wait for the market.
Yeah. So I would
They stand
assume,
on site.
I would assume that they're probably not far away because there's only a few hours between setup and takedown.
Wow. And how many stalls?
It's getting on for 70. It's more than that, including gazebo stalls, but it's somewhere between 60 and 70 actual stalls require something.
And do they provide the stalls?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
So over the last few years, under the current system, there have been costs incurred with purchasing new metal frames for the stalls, new canopies for the stalls, new plywood tables for the stalls. So all of that will be included in the cost of the contractor.
Does this include the extra ones we need at the Christmas market?
No, it doesn't. So this is based on the figure that we have for the farmers market each month, and then when Christmas Carnival happens, there's always a requirement to bring in a few extra stalls.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
So
That's cool.
what's the variation on, if it goes up to 100 stalls, will they still do 2K, or how does it work?
Chair, to be honest, we haven't explored that, and the reason we explored it is because the number of stalls that we've got and the space that we've got available for them, because there is limited space in the market site down there. That it hasn't been a question that we've raised. That we're confident that what we will be asking them for is what we need.
And how much do we charge for a stall?
I believe it's £37 a time.
Okay. So we're making £9 a stall.
So I think, Chair, that, and Carl will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the farmers market is seen as a community activity, community event, more than a profit-making
But
activity.
we have got a member of staff working at the weekend,
Yes.
so we do have that cost.
So what they then, it's not an extra overtime cost for them because their contract is such that their job involves them having to do the farmers market.
It's a very popular event and does do a lot for the town. Coffee shops are full, even there's a lot of coffee shops.
Is
Is there anything, Carl? Sorry, Jill.
No, I'm just going to say, it brings in a lot of people from outside Harpenden. It's not just Harpenden focused, it's a good one.
Carl, did you want to add something to that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to be clear in that, you know, from a profit and loss point of view, it's a loss, the farmers market. It doesn't break even with the stall hire fees that we get in. And so historically, it has been a key part of the business plan to support the high street around footfall. So yeah, we could, and if it's useful, we can provide you with the kind of the income expenditure figures to see the complete picture on the farmers market. So you've got an idea of that, but yeah, it's certainly not one that generates any surplus, and it's something that the council has subsidised in the past because of that contribution to the high street. And I think it would make a big difference if it didn't, because it does, as Councillor Haynes says, it brings a lot of people in. It supports a lot of businesses on the Sunday. And I was also, Chair, if I can, Councillor Browers, you kind of mentioned about extension, additional stalls. Just for context, really. So a number of years ago, pre-COVID, we did have a plan to expand the farmers market. At that point, we had a large waiting list of traders. We identified a number of different locations and actually agreed a new location, which was to extend it on the bit of Leighton Road that was at the time between Barclays and Lloyd's, which is obviously now not between those two places. And that would have generated around about another capacity of an additional 20 stalls. We pushed ahead with that, and then COVID happened, and then essentially the waiting list just fell away completely. And in fact, we had to generate new traders to get it up to the previous figure. So just a bit of context for you there, but also to say I think there's no realistic prospect of expansion at the moment, because the demand for traders is just not there. So the figure that we've got here for this particular contract, I would see that would, you know, that's a figure that's we wouldn't be looking to expand within that 3-year period. It is a negotiated figure as well, so the starting point was higher than that. So we've brought that down, which has been a good thing. So just a bit of context there, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Jamie?
I take all that on board, but we do need to promote the fact that we are subsidising it. If it's a good thing, I'm not saying we should be making money out of it, but if we are subsidising it, I think Harpenden public need to know that we are,
Yeah.
you know,
That it's a,
otherwise it wouldn't be there.
yeah. So,
Because putting money in the pocket of the coffee shops doesn't actually help the town council.
yeah,
No,
No.
but it does help.
Yeah, so let them know it's the.
I actually agree with you. I think it's a really good example of what the town council is doing for its residents.
okay, thank you. So is the committee happy to approve the monthly farmers market stalls are now going to be provided by Ray Range Market Stores Limited for 3 years from April 2024. Everyone in favour? And if I could just add the suggestion that, which was noted, if we could have a sort of like a closer look at sort of like the breakdown of the figures, the farmers markets, profits and losses, etc., manpower, or whatever, and that gives us everyone a better feel for where we're at. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item 6.7, the floodlight upgrade at the tennis courts in Rockhampton.
Thank you, Chair. So Harpenden Town Council took over the Rockhampton tennis courts in Mugger relatively recently in October 2022. And almost immediately set about making some improvements to the facilities there. Floodlights, several of them don't work because they are old. You can't just get replacement parts anymore. So the choice that we have are either replacing the heads on the current columns or replacing the columns and new lights. And the columns that we would propose to replace them with would be ones that fold down to make future maintenance of the lights very easy. Best value option is to appears to be to replace all the lights and the columns for that sum of £27,556. And the report outlines that and is requesting approval to go ahead with that.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Any questions on the lights? Page 31's got a breakdown of the quotes received and a bit more background. And you've got the highlight floodlight limited.
It's the Abacus floodlight system. When would they hope to get installed?
So I think, from memory, I think that the lead time for implementation would be 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
They said that they'd take 3 or 4 days to complete the work, weather dependent. That means that we'd obviously want to try to get the works done before tennis at its high season.
Does anyone have any questions?
The power presumably is okay on site. I'm going to dig up the pipe.
So the power that is currently there is sufficient to power the lights that are there. There is a different conversation. I don't know, Carl, whether there's anything that needs to be said on that at this time.
Yeah, Chair. I mean, just a linked report that's coming through to council at the end of this month does relate to the power supply. So the power supply at the moment from the comes from the Eric Morecambe Centre and the Leisure Centre, and we've been in discussions with the district council for some time, and the planned way forward for that at the point of the asset transfer is not the district council's preference any longer. And so we are having to prepare a report that essentially means the town council will have its own supply to the floodlights and the multi-use games area. So there's a report coming forward for that in this month. And what that will do, that will set out, being frank, a significant cost and a significant implication of digging up parts of Rothampton Park in order to meet the district council officer preference as it stands. Our preference is to put meters on the existing supply so that we pay for the fair value of whatever we're using. But our response to that request was that it would be too much administratively to work out and to manage that at the district end. So there's a full detailed report coming this month, which you can look forward to. But to answer the question, the supply is currently good enough, but there is a wider issue that we're having to resolve.
Just one question on that, Carl. Is that the final decision from district, or is it just something that they kick back to you? Have they just sort of said no to the meter idea completely? Or is there still is the door still partially open?
I think absolutely the door is open, because what we're required to do and what they would prefer us to do are two very different things. So very deliberately in the asset transfer, there was no requirement for us to produce our own supply. There was a requirement for us to pay for the use of any utilities that we use, and we've been trying to do that for some time. being frank, we've been trying to resolve this for a long time, and we're slightly at the end of our tether now. So we are going through the exercise of scoping out what the actual costs will be to deliver what their preference is. We will present that to council, and that council may wish to look at that and go, this is ridiculous. We are not willing to incur those costs. We're only willing to deliver what the asset transfer said we would do. So that will be within the report. So this is only an officer level at district, I understand, and it is their preference, but it's been going on some time and it's rather frustrating. So we've got to the point where we're just going to deliver and scope some options, and then put it to council to see what your views are on that, and see whether I suspect you may feel the same as we do, but we'll put all the information in front of you.
Patrick, I think you.
Yeah, well, irrespective of where the power comes from, we've got the same. It doesn't matter where the power is coming from. It's still the same decision to be made on this.
Yes. So are there any questions relating to these 4 recommendations? Jamie, did you want to say something?
I think my judgment has been clouded by dealing with builders at the moment. I don't want to sound finicky, but that's an estimate rather than a quote. So
Estimated cost 27,556 plus VAT. So, any comments, Phil, on the? Is that how you normally?
The answer that I give, I think that's a really good point that the councillor has raised there, and we need to make sure that we're fireproof. But with this, you will see that the estimate is actually several months old, I believe, when you look at that.
1st of June.
But I actually had an officer go back to them, speak to them about 2 weeks ago to confirm that this is still the cost that it would be, and they've confirmed that the cost is the same. I think council makes a really good point that we need to be careful of that. But I think that because of the conversations we had, I think that's the cost that they're going to charge us rather than something different.
my builder's all right. I just don't trust anyone. And the other thing is, got to remember, which is positive, is these are more energy efficient. So therefore, the power required to power them is going to be less. So we should be all right.
Yeah.
Power them.
So the committee is being asked to approve the replacement of the old floodlights and electric parts with new energy LED heads, with the replacement of existing floodlight columns with new hinge columns for ease of cleaning and maintenance, approve the release of £27,556 from the new assets contingency earmark reserve, and approve works to be carried out by Hilux Floodlighting Limited, who have provided the most competitive estimate. All those in favour? Okay, thank you. And now we move on to final item 7. Is there any exempt business?
Madam Chair, there is no exempt business.
So we need, the date of the next meeting is
15th of November.
Thank you.
So
the date of, so that concludes the meeting for today. Thank you, everybody. And the date of the next meeting is the 15th of November. Lovely. The meeting is officially closed. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Carl.
Carl. Thanks.
See you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Jane, I didn't, I know, sorry that I didn't include